We were just getting ready to start. All right, so welcome to Healing by Design. We are on L. The class today is on lupus. So I will start with a prayer. Father, we thank you for this time together. We ask that you'd give us wisdom, revelation, insight on the human body, Lord. Help us to understand where these health issues, these imbalances, these disease processes come from, how we're out of alignment with your creation, Lord, so that we can realign with you and your heart and how you designed us to be. We just ask that you'd just speak to us today, and that connections would be made in the heart and in the mind to turn towards you. You're the ultimate healer. You're the one that created us. You're the only one that can heal us. No man, no medical system can do anything outside of your power, for you are the author of life. We pray in Jesus' name, amen. All right, so with any condition, this one being on lupus specifically, the main goal here is that we understand how the human body works. We understand how God designed the human body. It's a lack of understanding of the human body, which is one of the reasons we're in the mess we're in today. To understand how the body gets out of balance and how to reestablish health in the body. And one of my main goals always in doing these classes is to help people get off of a man-made medical system that we wouldn't need if we weren't so sick and unhealthy. Like Jesus very clearly said, the sick need a doctor. So if we weren't struggling with so many health issues, we wouldn't need to be running to the hospital and the doctors all the time. So we want to get off of that system, because that system is built on a lot of deception, a lot of greed. It's not that there's not some good things happening in the medical system, but there's very little good things happening in the medical system. It's mostly causing harm and damage to people. When you talk about lupus and these kind of autoimmune conditions, I would say it's heightened, because the drugs that they use for these kinds of conditions are some of the most damaging, destructive drugs known to human beings. I would say next to cancer, which is the ultimate in using chemotherapy and just poisonous agents against the body, autoimmune diseases is probably right up there, because they actually use some of these really heavy, damaging, dangerous drugs to try to treat these conditions, because again, it's a lack of understanding of the human body, of God's design of the human body. And so we want to get people away from those drugs, because they're expensive, they're damaging, they're dangerous, and they're taking people's lives. So let's get into lupus. So I always love to learn and discover where the names come from. Aren't you guys interested in how the name lupus came about? I mean, what does that even mean? What's lupus? Everybody probably has heard or known of somebody who's had lupus. It's not an incredibly common disease that's been diagnosed, but it's up there. They say about 1.5 million people in the United States and about 5 million worldwide are given this diagnosis of lupus. Some disease names kind of speak for themselves, like arthritis, inflammation of the joints, like common Greek words that are just descriptive of what the person's suffering from. But lupus is pretty interesting. 1700s, French doctor, and he noticed some of his patients had this marking on their face that he felt looked like a wolf's bite. Who knows what a wolf's bite looks like? Only in the 1700s, right? So this marking on the face looked like a wolf's bite. And he started giving people this name of this disease called lupus, because in French, the word for wolf is loup, le loup, L-O-U-P, le loup. So that's where it came from, lupus. So if you think about in the application of today, That doesn't mean much, right? So here's where I have to be serious and tell people the truth and try to be gentle at the same time. But lupus is one of those things I call a junk diagnosis. Okay, it's often misdiagnosed. It's a word that doesn't really mean much. The symptoms of lupus are really just like any other autoimmune disease. You could have rheumatoid arthritis. You could have all various forms of autoimmune conditions because they're all the same, only different. And what I mean by that is that they all manifest in symptoms because of what's going on in the body, but they're given a name based on where it manifests. So they have kind of this list of symptoms, and if you match some of these symptoms, they'll put this diagnosis on you. And so I think what's important to understand is, like, how do I word this? Like, I don't want people to be tied to a diagnosis. I mean, do you know how many people are like, yeah, I have diabetes, I'm a diabetic? Like, that's their life. Like, they tell everybody about it. It's the main conversation at every event and every party, and they live their life as a diabetic. I mean, if there's a way to not have diabetes, wouldn't you want to be free of that? But some people are tied to that. And some people have been sick for a long time, so it's like they want a diagnosis because, oh, now I know what's going on with me. I got the lupus diagnosis. No, you have no idea what's going on with you. You still have no idea what's going on in your body. And now the pharmaceutical industry is giving you drugs that could potentially kill you. And so that's why I call it a junk diagnosis, because it's all the time misdiagnosed. It's very similar to rheumatoid arthritis and other autoimmune diseases. What's important for you to understand is that you have an autoimmune condition. And so it's important to understand what autoimmune condition means. So where I want to be gentle here is, you're sick. Yes. There's a problem. Yes. There's something wrong in your body. Yes. There's something needs to be done to correct the situation. But lupus is just a name that doesn't mean much. So don't live your life tied to that diagnosis. Because, you know, everything I know about the Bible and Jesus is he came to set people free. And we never had this level of sickness and disease now in any time in human history. People aren't free. People are in bondage. People are sick. And if you listen to the medical industry and you listen to the doctors and they give you a diagnosis, then they want to tie you down to that diagnosis the rest of your life. You know, diabetes is one of those sad ones that people can reverse in less than a month. But people live their whole life as a diabetic, and they talk about it, and they talk about what they can and can't eat or shouldn't do, and the drugs that they take, and they live in bondage. So we weren't designed by God to live in bondage to anything. So, wolf bite, lupus. Interesting.
Are we going to become werewolves?
I hope not. 9 out of 10. So I thought this was interesting. 9 out of 10 cases are women. And everybody I've met that has come to me because they were given a diagnosis of lupus was a woman. So 9 out of 10 cases are women. That's really interesting to me. Much more prevalent, at least 3 times more prevalent among African American, Asian, and Native Americans. So other ethnicities have a higher risk of lupus. I don't know why. So here are some of the symptoms of lupus. And if I read this, you know, you'll see very clearly that it could be any other kind of disease. But again, whether you have rheumatoid arthritis or, you know, Hashimoto's or lupus or, you know, whatever else is going on, it's more important to understand what is going on inside of your body than feel like you actually have figured something out or know something now because you have a diagnosis. And in fact, I always tell people, like, sometimes getting a diagnosis is one of the most dangerous and scary things that can happen to somebody, because then a lot of times you put your hands into the medical system and the doctors who you think know something about this disease or this condition. And the truth and the reality is they don't know anything about it. So the symptoms are achy joints, unexplained fevers, so you're getting fevers on and off. Now, why do you get a fever? You have an infection in your body. You get a flu, you get a fever. Swollen joints, arthritis, extreme fatigue, skin rash, swollen ankles, pain in the chest when breathing, butterfly-shaped rash across the nose. That's the one that they often use to diagnose lupus. Hair loss, sunlight sensitivity, seizures, sores in the mouth, pale or purple fingers or toes from cold. So Raynaud's, if you've heard of Raynaud's system, where people have literally blue, freezing cold fingers or toes. So, these are common symptoms for chronic fatigue syndrome. So many other different things. So again, the lupus diagnosis doesn't really tell you much. The way doctors diagnose this, if people have a lot of skin issues, if they have the butterfly rash, if they have a lot of these symptoms, if there's certain markers they look for in the blood, you might be given this diagnosis. So again, I just want to stress that some people think it's good to get a diagnosis, but unless you really understand what's happening, that's not necessarily good. They actually call lupus the great imitator because it's so often misdiagnosed, and so many of the symptoms are so similar to so many other health issues that people are struggling with today. The one that is very similar to tell the difference is rheumatoid arthritis. Because again, what's arthritis? Inflammation in the joints. When it's rheumatoid arthritis, it's what? It's autoimmune. So it's arthritis, it's pain in the joints, but the autoimmune version of it. And the way they can check for that is they can check for that. They can check for antibodies in the blood because the immune system's having a response in the bloodstream, and clearly these antibodies are coming in response of something. So we need to understand what's going on in the body. So, can we save questions to the end?
Yes, sure.
Thank you. So let's talk about what autoimmune is. Because like I said, I have to stress the fact that, okay, you get a diagnosis, but then if you subject yourself to the medical system, you could be in very big trouble. An autoimmune disease, and I'm going to give you the definition. I love to look up WebMD and pick on WebMD. Why? Because it's probably the #1 source that millions of people go to for health information. So here is WebMD's definition of an autoimmune disease. A disorder that occurs when the body's immune system reacts improperly, attacking and damaging the body itself. So I want to stress that improperly word. Because this is the whole reason I do what I do, and I'm passionate about it, and I want people to discover God in health and in their bodies, is because God didn't design a body to act improperly. Everything that God did by His design happens for a reason and a purpose. We live in a world and a system and a medical community that assumes that the body fails, that assumes that the body's breaking down and deteriorating, that assumes that by 50 you should be in arthritis and be pain and start to have brain fog, and well, that makes sense because I'm in my 50s. We live in a world that thinks that the human body is inferior because it seems to attack itself, like in autoimmune conditions, or develop these cancers out of nowhere like we have no idea what that is. But that's not how God designed the body. Everything that happens within the body is designed by God to happen for a purpose. So the body doesn't attack itself improperly. If the body's attacking itself, that is God's perfect and brilliant design to let you know that you have a big problem. You have a big, big problem going on. A major, major problem going on. If God didn't warn us through the way He designed our body, you'd be dead. But He designed it so that you have this response so that we can wake up and realize that something needs to change and something needs to be different. So if you follow the route of the medical community, you will get on these drugs and not understand why you're having these autoimmune responses and these reactions and this pain and these rashes and all these things that are going on in your body. So the reason, let's talk about what autoimmune is. Let's just understand what autoimmune diseases are, because they're super prevalent today. And there's all different kinds out there. And there's, I don't know how many 100+ different names of different autoimmune diseases these days. Just lots and lots of autoimmune disorders. So what does that mean? So you have an immune system. Where is your immune system? Where's the majority of your immune system? Anybody have any idea? In your lymph and your gut. Okay? So I'm making up a percentage. I'm totally making this up. But I'm going to say 95% of your immune system is your gut and your lymph. There's other things going on in your thymus and your liver. And there's all kind, the body's amazing. But your gut and your lymph is where your immune system is. So if there's an autoimmune disease going on, there's a problem there. Something's not happening there the way it's supposed to work. And so I'm really going to focus on the gut. And with any autoimmune disease, the conversation could be the same. So whether I'm up here talking about chronic fatigue syndrome or Hashimoto's disease or anything where they check for certain symptoms, but I think more importantly, they're actually finding the antibody response in the bloodstream. You guys all understand what I mean by that, right? The antibodies is what the body creates to go after a foreign invader that's in the body or in the bloodstream. Antibodies. And so when this autoimmune response is happening, think of the human body, think of the digestive tract, and think of it like a castle wall. It's probably the easiest way to describe it. When you eat something, it should go in your mouth, and your body's going to utilize what it needs, and microscopic molecules of nutrition, vitamins, minerals, proteins, amino acids, just the basics of life of what we need, pass through that permeable membrane of your intestines, and that's what feeds your entire body. So to have a healthy brain or a healthy toenail or a healthy heart, your body's fed through what you eat and what nutrients are allowed out into your bloodstream, out into the rest of your body through your intestinal tract. And what should not be allowed in your body should be simply eliminated as waste. That's why we poop and we pee. It should be eliminated as waste. So that's how it's supposed to work. So in all autoimmune diseases, that doesn't work. So this intestinal tract that's your castle wall, think of it like you have trained fighters. This is the way the GAPS diet book describes it, and I think it's the perfect description. Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride. You have warriors on your castle wall. You have archers, you have knights, you have people trained in warfare. Okay? So you can eat stuff that's not the greatest stuff for you. I mean, there's all kinds of food additives and chemicals and artificial food colorings, and the pharmaceutical drugs are all toxic. I mean, all this horrible stuff we put in our bodies. But these defenders on the wall know who's good and bad. They only let the good guys in, and all the bad guys get flushed out. And so when your soldiers start getting killed and your wall starts crumbling, and now all of a sudden the invaders and the bad guys are getting through your intestinal tract out into your rest of your body, out into your bloodstream, that's called leaky gut, and that's called autoimmune disease. And the way she describes it in the book is that inside the wall of your intestines, you have these soldiers that are trained for battle, and out in your bloodstream, you have civilians with pitchforks. And maybe knives, because I'm sure you got a butcher, you got different people doing different jobs. But you got farmers and you got regular workers, not soldiers. And so now all of a sudden, instead of the battle staying in the intestinal tract and all the waste being eliminated, all of a sudden, all the stuff that you eat, all the chemicals that are in your food, all the pharmaceutical drugs, all the artificial flavors, colorings, the pesticides, the herbicides, everything you put into your body is now leaking out into your bloodstream, and you're expecting your civilians to somehow win this war. And all the stuff that's getting out into the bloodstream, it's foreign to the bloodstream. It's foreign to those parts of the body because God designed all of that to stay within the confines of the intestinal tract. And so now that that stuff is getting out, your body is reacting. And it's creating antibodies to gluten and to dairy products and to soy products. And these gluten molecules and these soy molecules look like our own tissue. They have similar molecular structure to the thyroid gland or to whatever the different tissues are. And so your immune system's going crazy, attacking this foreign stuff that's entered the body, but it also starts damaging healthy tissue and normal tissue. So this is kind of how all autoimmune diseases work. So really, the simple way to look at it is all autoimmune diseases are a result of a leaky gut. A damaged gut, allowing things into the bloodstream that should not be allowed into the bloodstream. Now you're putting 100 times more pressure on your lymphatic system, on your bloodstream, on your liver, all your other organs to try to deal with this stuff that should have just gone in and out without any problem whatsoever. And so that's why GAPS diet, body ecology diet, all these programs are out there that are gut healing diets. And that's one of the biggest things in natural health. It all begins in the gut. What did Hippocrates say? For all patient complaints, look to the spine and look to the bowels. If you have your spine properly aligned, because there's nerves there that connect every organ in the body, and you got your intestines healthy, I don't want to say it's impossible, but it's unlikely anyone would ever have sickness or disease. Because that's how it's supposed to work. So that's kind of just a brief explanation of autoimmune. A way to look at it is there's enemies in the camp. That was kind of in my notes. There's enemies in the camp. So the enemies have broken through the intestinal wall, and now they're out into the rest of the body, causing these autoimmune responses. So again, if you think of all autoimmune conditions, almost every single one of these people diagnosed with any autoimmune condition, lupus, chronic fatigue, again, it doesn't matter. They all have similar symptoms. They all are getting headaches and joint pain and some kind of skin breakouts and swelling, and there's all kinds of stuff going on. And they've been sick for years. And most of them already learned that, wow, I found out I do feel better if I stop eating gluten. I do feel better if I cut out the dairy. Because your gut is damaged. And there's things getting out into your body that should not be in your body, causing an autoimmune response. Now, how does that happen? All kinds of ways that happens. Aspirin destroys the intestinal lining. Most pharmaceutical drugs destroy the intestinal lining. Birth control pills damage the intestinal lining. Obviously, sugar and processed foods and all the soda pop we drink. And when you get infections in your gut, that destroys the intestinal lining. Candida, yeast, fungus, mold overgrowth in the body. They actually drill holes through your intestinal linings, and then you start to get that leaky gut syndrome. So it's a very real thing. The sad thing is the medical community, they don't recognize it. They don't talk about it. So why doesn't the medical community recognize or talk about these things? Because they've all been taught that the way you practice medicine is you give people a diagnosis based off of symptoms or blood work, and you give them drugs to treat the symptoms of that diagnosis. That's what 90% of doctors are doing out there. Very few of them are thinking for themselves. Very few of them are looking at any natural alternatives. Very few of them are doing anything but following this system of indoctrination that is destroying people. And so really, want to stress it with this lupus diagnosis because, again, if you put yourself at the mercy of the medical system, they don't understand that there's a link between your gut your digestion, your lymphatic system, and this autoimmune condition that you're dealing with. They go, again, read the definition. Your body's immune system reacts improperly. Okay, so if your immune system is improper, God had no idea what he's doing when he designed your body. We better do something to stop that. So what do they give people with autoimmune diseases? Prednisone. But the main thing they give people is immunosuppressant drugs. Your immune system has no idea what it's doing. So we're going to shut down your immune system. How do you shut down somebody's immune system? You put poison in their body. You shut down the body at the cellular level so that it can't properly reproduce cells and reproduce DNA. That's how you shut down somebody's immune system. That's what they do with cancer. That's what they do with rheumatoid arthritis. They shut down the body's immune system because clearly your body has no idea what it's doing anymore. It's just so backwards and upside down logic compared to how God designed the body to work. And us completely being ignorant and or ignoring the signs and the symptoms and the signals that there's a problem and we need to change. So, immunosuppressant drugs, steroids, people live for years, for decades on these drugs and never get an answer, never get a solution to what's actually happening in their body. So they live in misery. They live in addiction to drugs. They live in bondage to drugs. It's sick. You know, like sometimes I don't even know emotionally how to respond when I talk to this stuff about God. I'm in prayer about it, but like I don't know if I should be sick to my stomach, if I should be grieved, or I should be angry. But I tell you what, I experience all of those emotions for every human life. I mean, how many children are on these drugs? You know, 5, 6, 8, 10-year-old children being destroyed by the best medical system in the world. How about the most destructive medical system in the world? That's what it really is. We're so deceived. We're so deceived. So here are the drugs that they use for lupus and other autoimmune diseases. NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, which, gosh, hopefully some of us know the dangers of some of those. I mean, Vioxx had to kill 100,000 people before they took it off the market, but there's all kinds of these painkiller type of drugs that just liver damage, kidney damage, destroys the stomach lining, internal bleeding. I mean, going down the list. I've talked about aspirin and Tylenol many times. This isn't good for you just because you can go to a drugstore and buy it. It's still a toxin. It's still poison. You still don't want your dog to eat it because it would kill your dog. And it still kills 10,000 people a year. Steroids, which Mickey named, like prednisone. They're trying to slow down the inflammatory response. Again, your body doesn't know what it's doing. It's going crazy. Your immune system's going crazy. Inflammation's going crazy. So they give you drugs that numb your system, shut down the inflammatory response, shut down your immune system. Anti-malaria drugs. Isn't that weird? I mean, clearly they were just experimenting on people and they seem to help people. So anti-malaria drugs are used a lot in lupus. Blood thinners, anticoagulants. Coumadin and warfarin. Do you know what Coumadin and warfarin are?
Rat poison.
Rat poison.
Really?
You want to kill a rat? Give it Coumadin or warfarin. Want to pretend like you're practicing medicine in America? Give people rat poison. Yeah, we've totally gone mad. So the last one, I saved the worst for last, because again, I don't know whether to cry or make light of it, but it's certainly serious stuff. Methotrexate. Has anybody heard of that?
Oh, I know a lady who's been on it for beds. Has been on it for years.
Okay, so what's methotrexate?
It's a chemotherapy.
It's chemotherapy. What's chemotherapy?
Poison.
Poison. Used in warfare. Used to kill enemy soldiers. used to destroy nervous systems of other human beings. They use it, they actually call, like this was on, I think WebMD, I don't want to misquote, but I'm pretty sure it was WebMD. They said methotrexate is the gold standard for rheumatoid arthritis. It's their go-to. You got rheumatoid arthritis, put them on methotrexate, put them on chemotherapy. I guarantee you, chemotherapy will kill you way before rheumatoid arthritis will. Methotrexate I thought was interesting when I was researching it related to lupus. I actually found it on the a website that's a nonprofit organization that shares with women, well, couples, families, women, whatever, the most dangerous drugs because of potential harm to the fetus or birth defects. And methotrexate was right there at the top of the list. So if you find out what methotrexate does, like if you heard if you're into nutrition and you're pregnant, you've heard even mainstream medical doctors talk about folic acid, folic acid. You got to have folic acid to have a healthy baby, because if you don't have enough folic acid, your child could have birth defects. Has anybody heard that? You guys have heard that, okay? So that's actually partially true. Folic acid is the synthetic version of that B vitamin. It's actually folate that you want, which is the natural form that you can get in foods or you can find in good multivitamins. But methotrexate, it blocks folate or folic acid. Methotrexate blocks folic acid or folate and inhibits DNA synthesis within the cell. And what did I say earlier? Who gets lupus? 9 out of 10 times? Women. What's one of the main drugs they're given? Methotrexate. One of the tops on the list for birth defects, because it stops folate in the cells from you properly sequencing DNA, which is the life force of every single human being on this earth. So doctors are allowed to do this stuff legally. Now, I guess my question is like, who looks at this? Who researches this? What doctor does their homework and looks at the side effect? I mean, every doctor knows methotrexate's chemotherapy and it's poisonous. I mean, when I don't know what the study was for 10, 15 years ago, they interviewed doctors and nurses and asked them if they had cancer, would they use chemotherapy or radiation? And 90% of them said no. They know how dangerous it is. They would never do it to themselves or their own family, yet they prescribe it to other human beings. This doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But, you know, this is like legally being able to destroy human life. And new life. New life. 9 out of 10 women getting lupus. Who knows how many are on methotrexate and potentially causing birth defects. So it's just really sad. What's really interesting, again, I'm quoting WebMD, and it was very similar on the main lupus website. I don't know if it's lupus.org or whatever the main like informational website is for lupus. But in WebMD it says no foods cause or can cure lupus. That was their exact words. A lot of times their wording is kind of tricky, and it says, yeah, nutrition, it has not been proven that it can help with XYZ condition. So it's like you have to prove that like food helps the human body for some, like it's just weird. In the lupus website, they said no diet change is helpful. Listen to this. Despite such claims on the internet. So even though there's like real human beings that had lupus that discovered that they could heal their own bodies through nutrition changes, they're going to say, well, that's not helpful despite all those claims on the internet you read. So this is, again, a system that's designed to diagnose you, have you live in bondage your entire life, give you pharmaceutical drugs that destroy the human body, make millions of dollars of profit in the process, and tell me there's not demonic principalities behind this type of a system. And it's one of the biggest ones that I don't know if anybody's even trying to talk about or to deal with or to pray against. I mean, I'm all about praying against abortion and sex trafficking. But man, this medical system is killing way more than everything else combined. Way more. And people are actually choosing to kill themselves. That's what's crazy about it. You believe this doctor in a white coat because he got a fancy degree and you think he knows something.
Trust your doctor. We've been programmed.
Trust your doctor. And the system's been designed that everybody trusts their doctor. And it is a path to destruction. Now again, I'm not saying there's not good doctors out there. There's Christian doctors out there. Some are just deceived. There's good things happening out there with people getting their life saved and emergency medical technicians. And I have to throw that little disclaimer in there once in a while because people think I'm totally anti the medical system. I'm not. I'm for what's right and what's true and what's helpful and what's beneficial. But that's only 1 to 5% of what's going on in that system. The rest is destructive to human life. And trust me, God's not happy about it. So some of the triggers they talk about, it's kind of funny too. Sunshine. Why is sunshine a trigger? Because sunshine stimulates healing in the body and stimulates the immune system. So you don't want to do, they tell you if you have lupus, you don't want to do anything that stimulates your immune system. So sunshine is a trigger. Avoiding alfalfa and garlic. They single out those two foods in particular. If you have an infection, if you have a cold, an injury, or stress, those are the things that can trigger an episode. Well, some of those things make sense. You have an injury, you get an infection, you have an autoimmune disease, your body's already weak, your immune system's immunocompromised, you get an infection, it's going to nail you. People who are on these heavy-duty immunosuppressant drugs, a cold could kill them because their immune system is so weak because they've been on these drugs. So stress, obviously stress antagonizes everything. So what do we do about it? That's always the important part. I want people to understand the diagnosis that is really just a man-made term that doesn't mean much. Again, yes, there's a problem in your body, but there are other answers outside of the medical system's poison therapy. Because it's really all they got for these autoimmune diseases. And again, I get really passionate about it just because I've seen too many children. I've seen too many children on 7, 8, 10 drugs and steroids and the whole works. And they're 11. I had one in my office last week. 11-year-old on all these drugs. It's not right. All right. So what to do? WebMD, the main lupus websites, all these organizations will tell you that diet doesn't matter, diet isn't a factor, and if you talk to anyone in nutrition and natural health, they will tell you it is everything. It is the most important factor. It is the number one factor. If you want to have any chance at all of getting off of these drugs, you better address diet. It's everything about it. So you can live on immunosuppressant drugs and steroids for years and destroy your body, or you can actually address what's most important, which is nutrition and diet. So I'm going to explain why diet is important, because I don't want you just to assume it. You kind of want to understand, because again, if doctors aren't talking to people about nutrition, and I guarantee you people are asking, well, hey doc, what about nutrition? Is there anything I shouldn't eat because you told me I have lupus? Nope. People are asking. People are asking. So, leaky gut, damaged gut, things are getting into the bloodstream that shouldn't be in the bloodstream. This is why people are gluten intolerant, lactose intolerant, casein intolerant, allergic to peanuts, allergic to soy, allergic to on and on down the list, right? So when you eat gluten in grains, it shouldn't be in your bloodstream. It should stay confined to your intestinal tract and eliminated out through your stool. When it gets out into the bloodstream, the body says, I don't know who you are. I know you're not supposed to be here, so I'm going to fight you. And so it creates antibodies and it creates an immune response. We've known this for 100+ years. I mean, Dr. What was his name? Just drew a blank on his name. There's doctors who wrote about this stuff in the 20s and the 30s and the 40s. Huge volumes of books about this autoimmune stuff that's been going on. But again, if this was diagnosed back in the 1700s, this has been happening for a long time. It's just accelerated because we're weaker and weaker each generation. Very few people have woken up to the fact that, our bodies are being destroyed by the medical system and the food that we're eating. And so God has to break in and people have to wake up and the light has to go off if God's going to have any chance of bringing forth a remnant and redeeming people, which we know he is. We've read the book. We know the truth. People are going to wake up to this and they're going to start to turn back towards God and get restoration. But if you think that you're just going to continue on this path of destruction and just pray to God to fix everything and heal everything while you continue to take the drugs and eat what you want and do what you want, you might be in for a surprise. But I think that's what a lot of the church thinks. So we are very deceived in that area. So this is again why people have food allergies and food sensitivities. Their gut's damaged. Their body's not processing and eliminating the gluten and the dairy and all these different foods. So you've got to get the common allergens, food-wise, out of the diet, because if you get them out of the diet, you get them out of the bloodstream, the immune system stops going crazy. I mean, again, it's total opposite of what the doctors tell you. The doctors tell you your immune system's going crazy. We don't understand why, but clearly there's a dysfunction in your design, and we're going to shut down your immune system and go ahead and eat whatever you want. Where the truth is God designed your body. He's letting you know, he's responding appropriately to let you know there's a problem. There's invaders in your bloodstream that shouldn't be there. Stop eating foods that are common allergens. The immune system will stop going crazy, and you don't need to take the drugs. Crazy. So what you can look at is Body Ecology Diet and GAPS Diet. They're different programs. I'm not going to go through all the pros and cons and the differences of them, but there are differences in them. But what they have in common is they take out the common allergens. They take out grains, they take out dairy, they take out processed sugar, they take out soy and corn and all of these common allergens, because they have these protein molecules that if they get undigested through the intestinal tract into the bloodstream will cause an autoimmune response. I just want to stress it over and over again. Because if anybody watches this who has lupus, you can feel like a completely different person in a month and you can get off your drugs. Now you've still got a lot of work to do to heal your body, but that's the first step, is to stop your immune system from going crazy by the foods that you're eating. All right, so couple of tests people can do to check if they have leaky gut. The ones that I know of, I use Great Plains Laboratory. I use the IgG blood spot test. So you do 5 drops of blood on this little card, you send it in, they check all these different foods to see if you're allergic. It's good to know that. Why? Because yes, you can avoid those foods, but the most important reason you do that test is because that means that there's some level of permeability in your gut that's allowing these things into your bloodstream, and they're present in your bloodstream. If they're present in your bloodstream, you have a gut problem, a damaged gut, and likely an autoimmune response because of that. So the IgG blood spot will immediately tell us that there's antibodies in the bloodstream against those foods, because if you had a perfectly healthy gut and you took that test, it would all come up nothing, because those things shouldn't be in the bloodstream. The other test is called the Oates test. It's an organic acids test. They actually check for candida, yeast, fungus, mold, clostridia. So often with autoimmune conditions is infection. Why do people have infection? Because their gut's damaged. A lot of times it's infection that caused the gut damage. Why are antibiotics handed out like candy? Okay, because everybody's dealing with infections and gut imbalances. And so when you have leaky gut, it's worse, because these infections get out, they get into the bloodstream, they get into your chest and then into your lungs and into your pancreas. And why do you think gallbladders get destroyed? Why do you think appendixes get taken out and appendixes burst? Women get ovarian cysts. If they break, their entire body gets filled with infection. They're never the same afterwards, usually. They heavy dose them with antibiotics when they do surgery for ovarian cysts and for appendix. Why? So you don't get infection spread throughout your entire body. You get leaky gut, you get infection spread throughout your entire body. It's a very dangerous situation. You're septic. You have a leaky septic tank. And so now these infections are getting into your body. And so the oats test will tell you if you have infections in your body. Great to know, because you got to deal with that. That can trigger an autoimmune response as your body's going after fungus and mold and candida and yeast. Your body will build an antibody to anything who's a foreign invader into your bloodstream. And if you keep putting that thing into your body, your immune system continues to go crazy. The other thing is a heavy metal test, just because if you have heavy metal toxins in your body, in your bloodstream, same thing. You can have autoimmune responses to that. It drastically weakens your immune system. It's just something else you want to find out. But the main thing that'll tell you if you have a leaky gut is that IgG blood spot test, the oats test. There's other leaky gut tests out there. There's gut permeability tests out there by other companies, other labs. There's all kinds of stuff out there like that. So you want to find something that can kind of give you that information so that you know that. So then you can start to take care of your gut. And the first thing you do to take care of your gut is you get off of all these common allergenic foods. So that's the number one way to stop the autoimmune response, is through food. So I kind of wrote down, I didn't write this in the sheet that I gave you guys, but I wrote down a few steps towards healing for this. The number one thing is body ecology diet, GAPS diet, something that eliminates all the common allergenic foods so that you can stop the immune system from going crazy, so you can at least reduce and or eliminate the prednisone or some of the other steroid drugs. It's a good first step. And then also you won't, after a period of time, need the immunosuppressant drugs either, because you don't need to depress and weaken your immune system if you're not putting things in your body that's stimulating your immune system to respond and to go crazy. So next, so along with diet, I want to stress this because this is really important. Although it's challenging, anybody with an autoimmune disease is going to do best on a fasted lifestyle. Like business as usual, so to speak, isn't going to work. Eating what you want, standard American diet, all the stuff that we normally eat, doesn't work for anybody with an autoimmune disease. Ask them. Ask any of them. Because the only way somebody with an autoimmune disease is still eating a bad diet is that they're so laden with drugs and their system's so numb that it doesn't seem to be affecting them. But that will come to a critical climax at some point in that person's life. But if the person's not taking a lot of drugs or trying to get off the drugs, they all know that diet matters. Diet makes a difference. So you got to change your diet. So learning to live a fasted lifestyle isn't easy, but it's really crucial for anyone with an autoimmune condition. So living without the dairy, without the grains, without the sugar as a baseline, reducing your food intake, smaller portions, eating 1 meal a day or 2 meals a day, juice fasting, doing bone broths and the GAPS diet kind of stuff where you do like a bone broth fast. You just limit your food, the foods you eat, and you limit your food intake. Why? So that your body actually has a chance to heal and repair itself. It is impossible for somebody with an autoimmune disease to ever heal their body by eating whatever they want and by eating the standard American diet, or even eating healthy, but they're still eating tons of bread and grains and it's whole grain pasta, and we've gotten into that before. We're trying to eat the healthy bread and the healthy sugar and coconut sugar and all this fun stuff. That's not going to work with an autoimmune disease. It will not work unless you're on drugs. And then it's not working. You think it is. It's the perception that's helping. So fasting is crucial. So there's so many different ways you could do that. We could talk forever on how to fast, but you could just keep it really light for the morning, skip breakfast or just do a juice or just a little soup or broth. Lunch, biggest meal of the day, and then you could keep it light for dinner. A lot of people eat one meal a day. A lot of times when I fast, I won't eat anything during the day. I'll just sip on tea or something during the day, and I'll have an evening meal with my wife. Something simple, fish and vegetables, chicken and vegetables, whatever works for you. But you have to learn to change your diet and to live a more restrictive, fasted type of lifestyle so that your body has a chance to heal. It's crucial. The foods you should eat, and I'll just give you a quick one on any autoimmune disease or lupus. Eat your vegetables, your healthy fats, olives, olive oil, avocado, fish, bone broths are very healing to the gut lining, coconut. You can do other fruits if you don't have any major yeast, fungal, candida overgrowth, but a lot of times with autoimmune conditions and leaky gut, people do. So you got to be really cautious on the fruit with those. So in general, if you just want to keep it simple, fruits, if you're okay with them, vegetables, healthy fats, and lean meats. It's getting rid of the dairy, the grains, and the sugar mainly. Not trying to find the healthy alternatives, not trying to find the sprouted bread versus this and that. Because, again, we've all done it. We've done it. Okay? Anybody who's sick has done it. Because they still want to eat the yummy stuff in spite of their illness. All right, so I've harped enough on diet. Number 2, clean up everything else. Because, remember, whatever you put in your body or on your skin is now leaking into your bloodstream. How many people do you know that are super sensitive to perfumes and smoke and smells and anything that touches their body or their skin, or they get a rash every time they touch something? It's because their blood's compromised. So now you got to be really careful against additives and artificial flavors and colorings and herbicides and pesticides, and you might want to think about buying some organic things, changing over your makeup, your personal care products, your shampoo, your conditioner. It sounds overwhelming. But the only reason it's overwhelming is because we don't live in God's world anymore. We live in man's world. And everything we put in and on our bodies, for the most part, is synthetic and chemical. But we have to switch back to natural cleaning products, natural beauty products, natural personal care products. We don't want to put chemicals in our body because we might respond to them. It's going to continue to weaken our immune system. So that's number 2, is clean up everything else in addition to diet that could get into your body, into your bloodstream. Because your protective layers, your protective membranes have broken down. That castle wall has been breached. It's broken down. So anything can potentially be problematic now. 3, I put reduce inflammation to get off steroids. So just the diet's going to be huge in that. Anybody out there, try it. Let me know. It works. Tumerol by North American Herb & Spice is a turmeric blend with oregano. It's a really good product. Everybody knows about turmeric for inflammation. There's another one we use a lot called Dodecin. D-O-D-E-C-I-N. Dodecin by Bipro. It's a blend of 12 natural ingredients that reduce inflammation in the body. I've worked with a lot of people with Crohn's and colitis, and you shift their diet and you get them on some herbs that are anti-inflammatory, they can get off the prednisone. Castor oil packs on your gut. Huge. It's like so relaxing to the nervous system and the muscles. Great for clearing out the lymphatic system and congested tissue. It'll help heal the damaged gut lining too. Very relaxing to the body. So there's kits you can buy. You just put castor oil on a wool or cotton flannel. You put it on the gut and you put a heating pad on it. And that's very powerful for reducing inflammation in the body because it relaxes the entire nervous system. Other thing is the CBD oil, the hemp oil. The CBD, again, very good for just calming and relaxing the nervous system. A lot of people take it for pain conditions. It doesn't have the THC, so people don't have issues with it like they do with marijuana. It's hemp. It's a different plant. It's legal in all 50 states. People ask, oh my gosh, is that legal? But yes, it is, and a lot of people are using it with great benefit. In fact, it's becoming so popular, the FDA wants to try to now control it and call it a pharmaceutical drug because it's helping so many people. So that's kind of the battle going on right now. So those things can help you get off the steroids. Reducing inflammation in your body. Number 4, heal the leaky gut. That is what the Lord's put on my heart for this fall and winter. That's my main focus for this fall and winter. And I'm working through something myself as far as like working on a protocol, and I'm probably going to kind of officially announce it or whatever in January. But the Lord's been talking to me a lot about it. And if we talk about the gut as the wall, the castle wall, there's a lot of scriptural references to rebuilding walls in the Bible, and I'm not going to get into those now, but the Lord's been talking to me about it, and it's awesome. It's really exciting. But we need to rebuild our wall. It's our defenses, and we have let down our defenses. We have allowed the enemy to infiltrate our bodies through a medical system that we trust, that's deceitful, a food industry that we trust and deceitful. It's funny, my mom's here, but my parents were always like, we didn't know. I grew up eating nothing but sugar and processed foods and macaroni and cheese and Doritos and soda pop, but it's true, they didn't know. Nobody knew. Everybody just thought food was food. Nobody thought this stuff was destroying us. I mean, we knew the funniest thing, I just thought of this. This seems so silly. Do you remember how growing up, if you had a pet, you were always told to never give your dog or cat what? Well, chocolate, but people food. That was the term we used. Don't give your animals people food. But man, we were so oblivious. I mean, thinking back on that, doesn't that make sense? Like, don't give your animals people food because it's going to cause your dog or cat to get sick and go to the vet and probably get a disease. Yeah, we're eating this stuff. We'd probably be better off eating the dog food. Yeah. So anyway, you got to heal the leaky gut. That is super crucial. And I'm just going to list a few things that can help that. One of the biggest things is bentonite clay. We are from dust of the earth. We will return to dust of the earth. Most of us anyway. Depends on when Jesus comes back. But we are healed by clay and dust and dirt. And I've done whole classes on the benefits of minerals and clay. I did a whole series called Foundation of Creation based off of Genesis 2:7. The Lord God formed man out of dust of the earth. That's in the Foundation of Creation series. But I talk about how we're made of this. Think of the scriptural references. I am the clay, you are the potter. And so we are made out of dust. And clay, very powerful for healing damaged tissue. What farmers did when their animals got wounded, before we had antibiotics and veterinarians maybe, is they would take clay or mud and they just pack the wound and it would heal. That was normal. Wasn't a big deal. So clay heals a damaged body, heals a leaky gut. L-glutamine is an amino acid. Very powerful for healing the intestinal lining. Bone broth soups, like making chicken broth, or we have the new bone broth protein powders by Ancient Nutrition, super popular right now because people know the benefits of all the minerals and the collagen and all the nutrients in there, and they taste pretty good. And if you don't want to make broth all day at your house, that's an easy way. It's 23 grams of protein. It's an awesome way to supplement that. Those gut healing nutrients. Minerals are really important for the intestinal tract. Zinc is the most important, so high doses of zinc are helpful, but other minerals as well. I'm real big on plant minerals and electrolyte minerals, probiotics, because that's what lines, that's your warriors I was talking about on the wall. That's what lines that intestinal tract, are those healthy bacteria. That's what keeps the bad guys out and lets the good guys in. What's the password? So the probiotics, the healthy bacteria, very important for a healthy intestinal tract. And then a tea that we love is called digestion tea. I kind of created the formula, but it's a pretty basic formula. It's slippery elm bark, marshmallow root, fennel seeds, ginger, and licorice root. So these mostly are mucilaginous herbs. What does mucilaginous sound like? Mucus. So they're very slippery, soothing, coating, healing herbs that heal a damaged intestinal tract, intestinal lining. So it's another herbal blend that can heal that intestinal blend. And then the other things I listed were just your basic things. Exercise. Everybody feels better when they exercise and get their blood flowing and moving. Reducing stress, because that's definitely a trigger. And so, and sleep. Good sleep, rest, nourishment, healing. So that's lupus. I mean, I don't know how else to say it except that our medical system and this is by design. This isn't meant to offend anybody, but this is by design, and people know this, so I'm not saying anything that most people don't know, but our medical system is designed that we give fancy names to a diagnosis, use fancy medical terminology, makes the doctor look really smart, and looks the patient look really stupid. And if the patient's really stupid and doesn't know anything, he's going to do whatever the doctor says, even if you might go, man, methotrexate, that's chemotherapy, and like, should I really do that? Yeah, it works. That's all we got. Okay. I mean, this is the world we live in. And so if we're ignorant of the truth of how our body works, of how God designed the body, of how the fact that nutrition really matters and can help and heal, and herbs and the things that God designed can help and heal, we're going to believe this man or woman because they have a degree. That's a very dangerous situation to be in. So it's designed that way. And yeah, I don't care much for that system, as you can tell. So we need to keep the remnant. Like if we're talking about remnant, like if we want to use biblical terminology here, let's keep a remnant of the medical system that works. But let's pray that the rest would be torn down, because there are principalities over that system that aren't going away anytime soon until the saints rise up. Because there's trillions of dollars. I don't know if there's any more money in any other kind of system than the medical system, at the expense of the destruction of human life. You don't think that's a win-win for the devil? So I don't know if there's any other stronghold on any system than the worldwide pharmaceutical industry.
No, not at all.
So we need to be praying for that. I don't want to take anything on without God's approval, and I certainly don't want to do it by myself. So I encourage people to pray of for God to break in this area of complete deception and blindness in our world today. So that's lupus. You don't have to have it. God didn't create it. He didn't design it. That name has nothing to do with God. Like, where did that even come from? Okay, so it just means there's a dysfunction in your body. It's working the way God designed it, but it's dysfunctioning because of the damage and what's going on with your body. So you don't have to have it, and you can get off the drugs. And you especially if any kids, anybody, but children, for the love of God, I mean, parents, change your kids' diet. Get them off of these drugs. The testimony is God's testimony. That's the most powerful thing you can give anybody, is your testimony of Christ, to bring people into the truth. It's by the power of our testimony. We overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the power of the word of our testimony. And the same thing in health and nutrition. So what? You've been on the medical system, you've been on drugs for 15, 20 years, you've been given this diagnosis. Get free. And tell people your testimony so that they can get free. And let's get people free. All right, amen. I'll stop. Yes.
I got a couple questions, and then just a comment. Back on those symptoms, can you just read through those again?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I missed several of them.
And I think these are just off of WebD or the WebMD or the Lupus, like the main lupus.org or whatever. But it's achy joints, swollen joints, unexplained fever, like you just get a fever out of nowhere, fatigue, extreme fatigue, sounds like chronic fatigue syndrome, right? Skin rashes, swelling ankles, pain in the chest when breathing, or pleurisy. If you got pain in the chest and you have trouble breathing, what's going on there? You have an infection.
So it could be lungs and respiratory.
Lungs and respiratory infection. Unless you inhaled like 20 pounds of drywall dust or something, you probably got an infection in your lungs.
Oh, no.
Butterfly-shaped rash across the cheeks and nose.
Okay.
Hair loss, light sensitivity, because again, that stimulates your immune system. Sunshine does. They look at it as the bad guy. Again, everything that God created is bad, and the body doesn't work right. The sun's a problem. Seizures, mouth or nose sores, and Raynaud's symptoms. So pale or purple fingers. Those are the main symptoms. Any other questions about lupus? or random, whatever. Doesn't.
Autoimmune, so would that include diabetes? Or is that in another category?
That would be another category. Type 1
Yes, type 1.
is autoimmune. So the same things would apply. You know, usually there's an infection in the body. The foods definitely play a role. Yeah, not type 2.
Okay, the castor oil pack, how long can you put that on for like, how long? Can you give me an idea?
The castor oil pack, like the longer the better. I tell people try to do at least an hour. If you can do it an hour, hour and a half in prayer in the morning or at night is great.
So basically you can go to sleep with it on
Yes.
if you want to, and then when you wake up just,
Yes,
okay.
you can do that.
Especially if you have a heating pad that turns itself off
Yes.
automatically in a certain amount of time.
Okay.
Totally. Or you just keep it on low or whatever. Even if you had it on, it would be okay. Yeah. I did castor oil packs for my wife on her back one time, and what we did is I actually set the alarm for like 4 in the morning, and then I woke up, I got the castor oil pack, I put it under her back, she went to sleep, and then if she got up at 7 or whatever, you know, she had it on her back for 2-3 hours.
Okay, good.
So, yeah. But the castor oil packs are awesome for a lot of things. There's a whole book I read called The Oil That Heals, and it was all about the miracle of castor oil.
Yeah,
And
I took castor oil as a kid was, for the usual.
for torture. Oh, and constipation, right? So parasite cleansing and constipation, that's what they tortured kids with in the past. But you know the Latin name of castor oil? And now God didn't come up with this name. Man came up with this name. But the Latin name for castor oil is Palma Christi, palm of Christ.
Really?
Yeah, because the healing power of it is so amazing that it just dumbfounds people. Yes?
So, is there a simple way to know when we're talking about the two cleansing parts of our body, the kidneys and the
Colon.
colon?
Uh-huh.
Is there a simple way to know which of those you need to cleanse in any given, so like, is it always, they both need to go through a cleanse of some kind, or?
I would say both. I mean, those are really the most important two, because you've been to my classes before. Well, lymph as well, but it's always colon and kidneys first, because that's the main way the body eliminates toxins. If you want, like, again, let's use biblical language just because it's fun. If you want to be in the physical, pure, clean, holy vessel, the way God designed it, you know, even in biblical times, they were very serious about what they didn't eat, not because they were being legalistic, they were just trusting how God designed the earth. But if you want to stay pure, clean inside the body and not have a body that's breaking down and degenerating and arthritis, no, I'm getting old, those are the two systems that need to be working the best, the colon and the kidneys. That's how waste is removed from the body. It's the colon and the kidneys. So I can't say, you know, which one first or whatever. The colon, let's just say this, the colon eliminates the largest portion of waste, all that solid waste. That's big time. But my gosh, the kidneys have to get rid of 100,000 plus miles of waste trapped in tubes in our cardiovascular system and our lymphatic system and the ureters and all that bile duct work in between our liver and our pancreas and our kidneys. And there's a lot of stagnant water in there. And so they're both important.
And last week you talked about that if your urine isn't dark, cloudy, stinky,
Right.
it probably isn't getting rid of toxins. It's
Exactly.
just going through without the toxins coming out with it.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep. So your urine should be dark, cloudy, and stinky. Now, so when's the time where you're usually your pee is the most dark, cloudy, and stinky?
In the morning.
In the morning when you wake up. Why?
And
Because you've been
because you've
lying.
been resting all
Yeah.
night and it's had time to.
Yeah. You just did an 8-hour water fast or 8-hour dry fast, no food or water. So your body detoxed. We
So
cleanse at night.
Fasting of some kind where, particularly if you're only having like bone broth and things that are nutritious,
Yes.
not other, that kind of fasting will, in some measure, do a cleanse. Of
Absolutely.
both the colon and the kidney.
Hallelujah. That's the best way you can do it.
And is there-
Juice fast, bone broth fast, a combination of those things, but keeping it really simple, really light, still providing nourishment. You can still function. In fact, you might be like, this is the best I felt in 20 years. Why? Because I've heard that many,
is there
many,
a
many
minimum
times.
amount of time that has some benefit of
A
that?
minimum amount of time, I can't really say that. I just say anything is better than nothing. Like a lot of people do 1 day a week.
Yeah.
Some people do 3 days a month. Some people they just go for it once a year and do a 40-day juice fast once a year. You know, so you got to figure out what works for you, but you have to do it to some measure. Because it's not just about the physical healing. There's a lot of emotion involved in that. There's a lot of discovery of our weaknesses and our temptations and our struggles and our idols when you fast.
Yeah, I actually said that about a week ago because I was actually doing a bone broth and ginger root tea kind of a fast trying to heal my diverticulitis condition.
Yeah.
And
Great.
weeks into it, I started saying, I feel the best I've felt in ages.
Hallelujah.
You know?
And that's a praise God moment. And that's a moment, that's like that realization that yes, we're sinful and we're broken and we're degenerate for hundreds of generations, yet God is still God. And He can do it for anyone, anytime, any place, if you choose it. Anytime we can heal. It doesn't, 3rd, 4th stage cancer, it doesn't matter. Anybody can heal of anything if we would choose God. And praise God, what an awesome testimony. You know, and I'm sure you still got more to do or, you know, whatever. But tell people that because that's like, that sparks something in people's heart. Because we have been lied to. You're going to have diverticulitis the rest of your life. You're going to be on prednisone. There's nothing you can do. Oh my God, if you have a flare-up, you don't want to have a flare-up, stay on your prednisone. You'll be in the emergency room. Right? You were told that. Yeah.